One of the more unexpected entries in the Silent Hill franchise that I didn't initially expect to have the most high expectations for, at the time before playing, was Silent Hill Shattered Memories, a reimagining of the first game that takes much inspiration from the premise of the story and the main characters, but does its own direction to freshen things up. However, I'm glad I gave it a chance, as this is undoubtedly one of the most unique Silent Hill games among them all, not just in its execution, but also in its development and most importantly, unused content. Welcome to the cut content of Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Before Silent Hill Shattered Memories was even perceived, two initial early concepts were considered: Brahms PD and Silent Hill Cold Heart. After releasing the PSP version of Silent Hill Origins, Konami wanted a follow-up for Origins with another PSP title. However, William Ortel, a producer of Silent Hill at the time, pushed Climax to pitch a new first-person shooter Silent Hill title for the Nintendo Wii. This pitch would be called Brahms PD, a spin-off first-person shooter featuring a psychological profile system where you play as an amnesiac police detective from the Brahms police force looking for her missing partner. This pitch, however, would ultimately be rejected. Because of this would lead to the second pitch, Silent Hill Cold Heart. Cold Heart would be pitched for a new Silent Hill game to be released for the Wii in 2007, developed by Climax Studios. In 2014, the pitch document containing an informational booklet consisting of 7 pages was leaked online. In this document, we see the introduction, gameplay features, puzzle examples, and technical aspects. The introduction would see the story centered around an emotionally unstable college student, Jessica Chambers. Jessica struggled with nightmares and insomnia, leading her to start speaking to a psychiatrist. However, this would still result in her emotional distress and turmoil. After running out of options, she decides to visit her parents to help with her mental distress. While traveling on a snowy evening, she becomes lost in a harsh blizzard and ultimately follows an ambulance closely. This eventually brings her to Silent Hill. While here, she would have experienced the psychological nature of the town, harboring physical manifestations of her inner fears and nightmares. This document contains an in-depth walkthrough of gameplay features, demonstrating the Nintendo Wii's motion controls that would see the player utilizing a flashlight, realistic melee combat, and an interactable environment. The Frozen Otherworld is a hostile environment containing dynamic transitions with a theme of a blizzard-like setting. The gameplay would have heavily capitalized on the psychological horror aspect with the use of a psych profiling, tracking the player's every move. This psychological profile would influence later events within the game. Nintendo Wi-Fi connection would be uniquely used to report real-world weather and news for dramatic effects. Jessica's cell phone would have been uniquely used as a radio of sorts, contacted by friends or foes, which should see the Wii Remote play audio from the speaker to simulate the experience. Monsters would also be alerted by Jessica's cell phone, as it would radiate sound when monsters are nearby. Character customization would have also been a fundamental gameplay feature that would allow the player to adapt to the harsh weather through survival, such as clothing, food, drinks, barricading, etc. There is also a dedicated walkthrough of exploration and combat for a level within the game called The Lake, suggesting that a build for this level could have existed, though unlikely to resurface. While these all sound very ambitious and conceptually a great premise for a game in the Silent Hill series, it's possible Climax Studios overestimated the technology of the Nintendo Wii with its limitations. This unfortunately led to the cancellation of Silent Hill Cold Heart. However, these gameplay elements would later be repurposed for the release of Silent Hill Shattered Memories, notably reprising gameplay elements such as the Frozen Otherworld, interactable environments, and using a flashlight and cell phone. An unused psychological warning screen can be found in the game files named UI_psychologywarninghis.jpg. In the Wii and PS2 versions, the font size, warning, is used instead of psychology warning, and shows repeated text of warning in the background of the graphic. In the PSP version, the warning text is used for the title. The font size is different, and the warning is used for the graphic in the background. Interestingly, the warning graphic for the PSP version retains the warning background. The file UI_photo_Harry and Cheryl.jpg shows a photo of both Harry Mason and Cheryl Mason, indicating at some point in the game, the player would have received this image on their cell phone, given the prefix UI_photo in the file name. 2 unused JPEG files of both the Wii Remote and the cell phone can be found in the game files. These unused graphics show respectively a Wii Remote and Harry's cell phone, likely intended as UI graphics for a tutorial prompt in the game. There is also an unused graphic of a close-up of Harry Mason on his cell phone. The file, PR_painting outline ID map, is an unused texture of a crude painting depicting a car with a 2-story house and a couple, likely intended as an early texture for one of the therapy session exercises. The file, shsm_oob fx_pz_def_cards_003.png is an unused texture of a tarot card for the 4th therapy session, depicting a sad man slouched on a chair. The file, shsm_oobpr_psy_tat_card_back.png is an unused texture of the back of a tarot card that has a disclaimer with a warning that reads, "This card is intended for psychological use only by trained psychologists. It should be well noted that the use of this card is dangerous and may lead to serious card-related issues. Due to its inherent danger, it should therefore be used on nobody." An unused model of young Cheryl Mason was intended to be used in cutscenes throughout the game, which can be found in the game files. The model of Harry's cell phone when he receives a call during cutscenes or when the gameplay shifts from a first-person perspective into a third-person perspective has an earlier render of the cell phone model in the game files. The early model bears a resemblance to the concept art of the cell phone. The unused song, afx_explore.snd, in the PS2 and PSP versions, is loosely repurposed from the song Tribal Cursed from Silent Hill Origins. The unused song, afx_drk.snd, in the PS2 and PSP version, is remixed from the song Deep Thoughts from Silent Hill Origins. The unused song, afx_drk.mus, was initially used in an E3 walkthrough during the first therapy session of Dr. Kaufman. However, this would go unused in the final game. In the files of the PSP version, unused raw transitions of the woods section into the frozen otherworld transition and then into the normal world transition can be found. On the official Facebook page of Climax Studios' account shares multiple early Rorschach concept artworks with the developer's commentary on each concept artwork, detailing in retrospect the development behind each Rorschach. These represent a very early attempt to visualize some of the narrative themes and embody them through the enemy design. Unfortunately, these portrayed a very literal translation of the opening car crash sequence as opposed to exploring the underlying themes that ran throughout the narrative. The direction was subsequently pivoted towards a concept with roots more familiar to what you see in the game now. A neutrally aligned Rorschach enemy was required as a starting point, the point of introduction, a point before enough personal psych data has been collated in order to align the enemy of your playthrough. This image shows the neutral psyche, but with the first stages of bias, in this case, disease. Continuing the disease and tumor theme, these sketches form some of the early rounds of concepts. We moved away from some of the traditional staples of horror seen here, and focused more on an interpretation of the narrative thread. It is no one's fault. Harry and Dahlia have simply drifted apart. They are now trapped in a dying relationship, but each is unwilling to acknowledge it. It was Harry's fault. Harry is a drunk/addict. Every aspect of his life is mired by his addiction. Rather than being a loving husband/father, he is a drunk. The schema of green wine bottles, absinthe, queasiness, yellow of whiskey, vomit, and liver disease formed the backdrop to your narrative, whereas in the Frozen Nightmare, you were harassed by a vision of disease and tumors. It was Harry's fault. Harry is a serial adulterer and is sexually immoral. His affairs are harmful to his family and to the women he has with them. In turn, the Frozen Nightmare manifests itself appropriately. A behind-the-scenes video captured by the game's director and producer, Sam Barlow, documents a video of motion capture actors rehearsing for a music video of one of the Silent Hill Shattered Memories soundtrack songs, Always in My Mind. According to Sam Barlow, this music video for Always in My Mind would be unreleased to the public, with this being the only known footage to date. And that is all the cut content of Silent Hill Shattered Memories. This was quite the journey when it came to unraveling the earliest of beginnings when it came to its development cycle, to the hidden secrets regarding unused content that would still be explored almost a decade later to this day. For such an underrated game, it only makes sense that such fascinating details as these, which would have been found over the years, would still be talked about amongst the community. Anyways, that's me. Thank you for watching, please have a great day, stay safe, and goodbye.